Slacker meets the shadow people. Attention, KLB. Considering the company's monthly production projections, quarterly operating expense reports, and completed reviews of all newly hired employees are due today, it pains me to no end to advise you and the other dedicated, hardworking, and conscientious team players that you'll all have to pick up the slack during my absence today. Unfortunately, due to the most astounding set of circumstances entirely beyond my control, I found myself totally incapacitated by a phenomenon so fantastical I wouldn't share this truth with anyone but you. Allow me to explain. It was about 3:33 p.m. when I realized many in the office were dragging along, lamenting the election of Donald Trump. I actually witnessed some staffers openly sobbing. I knew if feelings were this intense 2 days after the announcement, someone had to step up and bring a little cheer back into this place. I decided to spring for a bunch of snacks with some beer and wine for a little impromptu party to help those feeling down forget their sorrows for a while. You know that's the kind of guy I am. However, those good intentions weren't rewarded as one would expect. Grabbing my cell and some bum bucks for the low-lifers who always camped out in front of our building, I made a beeline for the wine and liquor store. I'd only walked 2, maybe 3 blocks before I had the odd sensation of being followed. I glanced over my shoulder as inconspicuously as possible to see if anyone was too close for comfort, but there was no one there. Paranoid? Maybe, but this is New York, so one can never be too careful. I continued for several more blocks with the same sense that something was amiss. I was not alone, and I could feel in my bones. Although I couldn't see who was following me, I sensed danger, and that sense of peril grew in intensity with every step I took. Instinctively, I knew I had to get rid of this person, so I hailed a cab, and that's when my life was turned inside out. When I jumped in the first yellow that pulled over, before I could utter a word, my shadow gave the cabbie directions to my favorite tequila joint on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Without noticing, I hadn't moved my lips. The cabbie followed my shadow's instructions and headed towards the bar. Dumbfounded and frightened, I sat quietly in the cab trying to process WTF was happening. I slid as close to the right side of the seat to put some distance between me and my talking shadow, but that obviously did little to help. My shadow followed. It's what shadows do. I should have known this, considering I haven't had a drink since last week. Arriving at the spot, I tossed the cabbie the fare plus a tip, and hurried inside with my talking shadow sticking me like ugly on Whoopi Goldberg. One seated at a booth, after having ordered a few shots to settle my nerves, my shadow said, "You've got a lot to learn tonight." I tried to ignore this thing because to do otherwise, onlookers would think I was crazy. On the other hand, I was in a bar with people who'd been drinking cheap booze for hours, so to see somebody talking to themselves wouldn't be a cause for concern. So I asked, "What the hell are you?" "I'm your shadow, stupid," came a curt response. "Well, why is this happening?" I wanted to know. "I don't like you," was a following curt response. "I need a drink," I said. "Go ahead, I'll have one with you," my shadow said. I had more than a few, and so did my shadow. Nearing my tipsy point, I asked my shadow why he was bothering me and how he could have a life of his own. My shadow explained that just because he was attached to me didn't mean he had to like me as a host. According to him, no law in physics states that shadows and the people they're attached to have to be compatible. In fact, my shadow said a lot of shadows don't like their host, and when they don't, they can make life miserable for them. My shadow went on to tell me how some shadows had driven their host screwy or made them appear that way to those who don't believe. And nobody thinks shit like this, he said. Still, despite what was happening, I had my doubts. What if I had gone nuts and didn't know it? It's not as if I hadn't suspected that going nuts would be a short trip for me. So I needed proof, and I'll be damned if my shadow didn't give it to me. "Look closely at the people at the bar and tell me what you don't see," my shadow said. It only took seconds to realize that some of the patrons sitting on their bar stools had no shadows at all. But that was impossible, I thought. My shadow said some shadows hate their hosts so much that they found ways to escape for a while. Not far, mind you, but they don't have to be tethered to their host 24/7. "Go out in the alley and see for yourself." "I'll wait here," my shadow said. So I did, and what I saw scared the living shit out of me. I found nothing but shadows and the voices of people hanging about. The creepy crowd chatted in whispers too low to be understood. But if I had to guess, they were exposing their host's most profound and darkest secrets to one another. Just as I thought this was all too bizarre to be possible, my shadow appeared at my side to assure me I was as sane as he was. It would be an understatement to say I wasn't convinced. I was a little afraid to ask, but I had to know why my shadow disliked me. And when I did, his last curt response staggered me more than anything else that had occurred all evening. My shadow said, "You work too much." I was rocked to the core, and I needed to know more. My shadow said he was a real slacker in this relationship, and he favored a 3-day work week that I should have done addressed years ago. My shadow complained that I came to the office way too early and stayed way too late. He said my life was too stressful, and he wanted out. He demanded I take more time out for myself, or he'd commit suicide. My shadow sounded serious, too. I wish I could tell you how the evening ended, but my shadow won't give me any privacy. Besides, I'm afraid of him, unfortunately. Since I have no idea what having a dead shadow means for me, I'm forced to take the day off to determine if this is simply an episode of madness, or if my shadow is correct and I've been giving too much of myself to this company. A workers' compensation claim may be in order. Either way, with your prayers, I will return to work bright and early Monday morning to discuss the possibility of a reduced workload for a while. Yours truly, Slacker,